It's a mob mentality, I think, also.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Definitely is.
Well, I mean, I thank you, Angie, and I want to, as always in these discussions, I want to throw in a curveball. I want to go back to Debbie, and you know, but you know, the reason I picked this particular film is, again, as Nico said, and I guess most of you saw it. You could add anything that's going on today, and there's little droplets, little minutes within the film of what they're talking about. The law, the way the law works. In the beginning, they were talking about the law, and I didn't show you the exact beginning when the sheriff, the main sheriff, was talking to his wife, because I want to cut it down for time. But he was having a discussion with his wife in his household, like we do. You see, but I want to go back to something Debbie said in the beginning. You said that it is if I remember correctly, you said it's a mental deficiency, right? Am I correct?
Yes.
Or
Mental illness.
a mental?
Oh yeah, that's the part that I'm right.
Right. So let me
Yes.
ask you this then,
Yes.
and I'm throwing you a curveball because you've been batting it out, you've been doing home runs. So I'm gonna throw you a curveball. If you say that racism, you know, sexism, and the way as society, and not just in America, pretty much around the world, how people treat each other is all a mental deficiency in itself, right? You have now alcoholism, you know, suicide. You have all these things. Veterans like myself, you know, we deal with suicides and you know, coming from the war and all this stuff. So let me ask you this: when it came to the creation of civilization, follow me for a minute, and you had all these factions of a city. You had Egypt, you had China, you had South America, Africa, all these different nations. You had the Congo. You had the what you call the Vikings. You had all these people, right? What is it? Where did the mental illness, follow me for a minute, take a turn when the Dutch, the English, and the French, and even the Spaniards decided that they're going to use one set of people as slaves to build a nation?
Okay. When did that start? Well, it started way before that. That's a symptom. That's a symptom. That's like saying you don't like abortion. Well, nobody likes abortion, but what the problem is family planning. So when you talk about the slave trade and the colonialism, which was another kind of slavery, and the apartheid and all that, those awful things, but mental illness started with the first people, I'm sure. However you however you do that, whether you say it's Adam and Eve or you say it's you know, however you view it, mental illness is, like you say, it comes from stress and different things. And I'm sure the very first people, uh, human type people, encountered it, and that's why it's so rife in the on the planet.
So, okay, good. Thank you for your answer. So, and I'm just throwing curveball at you. Okay, so
Yeah,
this is
it's
all
fun,
in
sure.
conversation. So,
Yeah.
you know, I've said in other discussions that my counteract to your argument is the slave, when it came to slavery, and just slavery. Okay, I would argue that that wasn't actually mental illness. That was a skill set, because I don't know if you noticed, there was one part in history where they brought in the Catholic Church to the west end of Africa, where he was on a pulpit praying for these savages and saying to God that these savages do not know better. And so this is why they end up in slavery. So again, we could say today that it was a mental illness, but it took skill. I mean, my wife was telling me one thing. We was going to Pennsylvania for my son's birthday, and we was crossing over the bridge to go to Philadelphia. And she said something. She said it took skill to build this bridge. People died building this bridge, and look at this
Yes.
marvel. It took skill to build what we build in America. Heck, it took ingenuity to put probes on Mars, the moon, and send probes out deep into outer space. So when you say it's a sickness, so what you're really saying is, with all this madness that the English and the Spaniards had, right? It was a mental defect for what they did and enslaved these people.
Because it was, but you're talking about a symptom. The mental illness comes from the power hungriness that brought them over.
Okay.
And these were not the first slavers. Slavery, as we know, went way back, not with Egyptians, by the way. That's a myth.
Right. The Chinese had slaves, and yeah.
And then there was different degrees of slavery, like in the Middle East. They treated their slaves better. They're still slaves, but there's some anecdote where somebody says, "Why are you crying?" This man says to a captured woman, "Why are you crying? We'll treat you very well." But she's still a slave. She's still been. Her husband was probably killed, and her kids and everything. So there's different degrees. But the thing is, it's a mental illness to want power over someone, think that your life is worth more than someone else's, that you would take from them, that you would take their life from them.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think it at the beginning when they planned this and when they started doing it, it's just like privilege. It's not even mentally there yet. They don't understand. But once they get accustomed to it and get used to it, then it's something that drives them to continue to do it. And whatever level it takes for them to keep the status quo is what they're willing to do. And that's when it really becomes a mental illness. I think it develops and progresses over time, and it gets worse. And now we're at this point where, it's just like, it's out of control. But at the beginning,
it's always been.
Yeah.
If you think back, when we think back on our history, look at the time of World War II, when almost the whole world was erupting in war, and the horrible things happening there. Or World War I, which they thought was the war to end all wars, but it wasn't. Look, World War II went afterward, and then all these other wars, the civil wars, and all sorts of warring that goes on to this day. So the thing is we really, really have to change our paradigm and deal with compassion. And if you get angry, when you deal with somebody in anger, they deal with anger back. But if you deal with them in compassion, you have a chance that they might respond softer. Not everybody, because some people are so far off, they're so ill that, you can't do anything but lock them up. There are some people, they're not curable. They're so far gone. But I think that in general, for the most part, if we deal with this compassion and we show it, and we stop being power hungry and materialistic, and instead of judging people on how much money they make, instead on how much they give away or how much they do for other people, this is we have to really change it. But there's these power hungry people that have mental illnesses and say the only way that I'm going to get what I want is if I'm this big rich fancy person,
and I'm depriving someone else.
That's the only way to get it. That's the only way to get that kind of money.
In their mindset.
So then why something like, so you know what, I'll just ask this question. Why won't people do it? Why is it that like when we talk about reparations, we discuss about reparations in other meetings, and people flat out say no, you cannot. Why should we give this group of people, and of course one person said that I'm going to be one paying for it, which is not true. The government will be paying for it, but he's like, well, I'll be paying for it. Why should they get it? And I'm saying, well, like, why should they not get it? Why can't they get it? So can anyone talk about that?
Well, I'll tell you this, whenever you can't find a solution to something, It's because it's not the root of the problem. It's the symptom. And you can't solve problems by talking about symptoms, except in passing. Again, I'll bring up the abortion issue. Nobody likes abortion. I mean, there might be a few very ill people that think that's a wonderful thing, but really nobody likes abortion. What we need to do is talk about family planning. So you don't argue about whether people can have an abortion or not. You talk about how you can get people not to have unwanted pregnancies. So when we talk about these other things like reparations, it's a symptom. It's not whether or not people should get money. It's about people being compassionate in the first place. And if everybody's compassionate, money doesn't become the issue anymore.
Oh, okay.
Because we're helping each other, and everybody ends up having enough money because we're helping each other. And I'm not talking about communism kind of thing. I'm talking about just helping your neighbor when your neighbor needs it, or reaching out and doing charity work and things like that. Not that there can't be some discrepancy in, that there can't be some people wealthier than others. That's just going to happen. Some people work harder, some people are luckier. There are reasons why some people are wealthier than others, good or bad reasons. But these people who are wealthier have to help the people who aren't. The people with resources have to help the people who don't have resources, that sort of thing.
And that's what reparations kind of is aimed at doing. I mean, there wouldn't be people so bad off if this thing didn't ever happen. And you're right, we can't deal with the symptom. But, it's unfortunate that that power is equated to money. That's what this world.
That's the problem. That
is the problem.
That's a symptom, though. It's a symptom problem. For instance, it's not so much that somebody should get money for losing loved ones and being persecuted, because you can't put a price on that.
No, you can't.
You can't. So reparations is kind of a foolish thing. But what you can say is, okay, you all got a bad deal in life, and you're talking about some target population.
Mm-hmm.
How can we help you, get you on your feet, and maybe give you a boost because you were held back? Let's give you a boost so we can get you up to par. It's not so much about giving somebody $500 or $1,000, because no matter how much money you give somebody, if they don't know how to use it properly, or they don't have the opportunities to use it properly, it's going to dwindle. You see, because they're going to use it desperately as they have to. But if we respect each other and we move with compassion, then these things will melt away.
Well,
Well,
go ahead, Crystal.
just one thing, and this is what I spoke about the last time we talked about reparations. It's like, no, handing out the money is not it's not the ideal solution, but the solution deals with, if money is what brings you power and you relinquishing some of that money, then you're relinquishing some of that power. And if you cannot say no to giving, if you cannot say yes to giving away that money, that means you cannot talk about reparations or anything else, because the money is getting in the way. If you could remove the money aspect of it, then maybe we can resolve things with compassion. Maybe we can, but you're not even willing to think about the money, because money is what makes you powerful in your eyes.
If you have a wealthy person, let's just call them wealthy, that's their resources, a wealthy person, if this person was to act with compassion to this target population, it goes without saying money would be in the equation. This
Definitely.
Person might buy resources. This person might do things that cost him money. For instance, with me, I make homemade cards and I don't donate them. It goes without saying that I pay for the things to make my homemade cards. Okay. Whether that's a lot of money to me or not, that's not the point. But the thing is nobody is saying to me, spend X amount of dollars. What they're saying, what I'm doing is I'm helping, and the money is secondary. So when we approach people, instead of saying reparations, we just say, help me.
Okay.
That's the difference. That's where you get around talking about symptoms and you get to the problem. You're right. The money gives them power, but only so much, because you have to also be willing to do certain things. There's a lot of wealthy people who have inherited money that don't have any power because they don't use the money to do anything. They're in the background. There's lots of wealthy people we don't even know about. So the thing is, it's two things, and it's fueled by mental illness when it becomes an ugly thing. So what we need to do is get people to value different things.